It's true. You have mentored me and I have learned so much. Every day is a new day. Probably one of the best lessons I've learned is wake up in kindergarten every day. And this morning you said, okay, secrets from the inside, Val. So get ready. Have your secrets ready. And I sat back and I want to be as honest and transparent as I possibly can. So, Greg, I am going to share a secret that I've never shared publicly. This would go back to late 80s, early 90s. So I was just a little pipsqueak. And I created my first subscription based magazine, which is pretty impressive because I had to make them by hand. I grew up in rural Saskatchewan, so I mean, you had to take the paper, fold it, staple it. I didn't have a printer. I had to make each magazine by hand, and it was impressive. Like I had perfume samples, I had recipes. I mean, I looked at the state propaganda available that I had accessible as a small child, and I would look at it and I would make mine just a little bit better. And then I went around and I started a subscription base. What do you think of that for a secret? I've never shared that publicly.
How old were you? Please, how old were you?
uh, you know, nine, ten,
That's
nine,
great.
9 or 10, and I made my first radio show probably a year after that. I would get out the
Oh
old
my
recorder.
God.
So,
Oh,
I baby propagandist, is that what you would call that?
oh
I
my
don't know. It's
God.
just yeah, crazy.
That's a great story. It doesn't surprise me. You're a little activist, a little disturber, right? I always joke, seriously, I believe we're all the same people. We're the same people again at for me at 64 and a half, as you at 42, as our next guest is 55. We all have our ages, right? But I think we're the same people that we were literally in the playpen, our playpen. It's just a theory. I'm not a Peterson, but everything I've found is that whatever you were like in your playpen, I was one of those guys. You remember this, Val? I think I've shared this. I think this is even publicly, but I don't. It was my grandfather's favorite grandchild because I just stand there in my playpen, laughing, laughing. You might even remember that the old poop running down the leg and just laughing, thinking life is the greatest thing in the world. My grandfather loved me for that because I just wasn't a high drama kid. But I know other people that were kind of observers in their playpen. They watched all their older siblings, didn't say anything, blah blah. And generally, very often it remains the case to this day. So, would you say you are the same person you were in your playpen? Well, you were at 9. What was the name of your magazine? Did you name it?
I did. So I the
That's
first publication was called Chatelaine or Val, and I and I took it to school, and I was so proud of it because like I took those annoying subscription papers you get in magazines. I collected them all, and I wrote like subscribe to Val's magazine, and I'll deliver it to you like on the first Friday of every month. And that's when I
wow,
learned about copyright law. I was taken
wow.
in and really schooled and said, like, you can't do that. You can't rip off the Canadian Chatelaine magazine. Like that's just not allowed.
Chatelaine.
Yeah,
That's like 50s, 60s. I remember that in the 60s.
yeah. So I sat there and I'm like, well, I can do this better. So I just called. I just I self-published, I self-titled that magazine, and people loved it. I had samples in there, I had stories,
Oh my
I
God.
covered everything. I covered it all.
Did you
And
have
then
hard copy? It was hard copy, right? So did you do the little smell? Remember the little perfumes with the
yes,
smells inside the pages?
of
Seriously?
course. I took it seriously.
That's
I
great.
inserted, even I took gum, like chiclets, and I tape a piece of gum in there. I did everything, and that's the point. I wanted to make it happen, and I did. And there was always the group that laughed. But you know what?
Wow.
They didn't self-publish at 9 years old.
Wow.
And
You realize
yeah, my
you're
first radio show as well followed that magazine subscription. So
What did you do for a radio? This is great. We'll do an entire episode on this. This is great because this is a secret to me. This is the first time I'm hearing it. I mean, you were a publisher and a radio gal at 9 years old. I mean, that's how I'd put you on a brochure. Right? Are you telling me that, or was it earlier? I mean, but I can't believe you're like 30 plus years ahead of your time. When I met you, and you're only 41 years old. You're 42 now. You're 41, and you're a wily veteran of 30 years. It sounds like, right? Wow,
I guess
wow.
technically, I would record off the radio. So I had two cassette players. An old Fisher Price recorder was my first one, and I'd record off the radio. So I would cover the news,
Oh my
play some
God,
songs, do some
no.
content from home, and then I decided, why am I not making my own commercials? So I started writing commercials.
Oh my
I
God.
wasn't even in grade 1. I
Oh
would have
my
just have
God.
known how to start writing. So yeah, probably 5 or 6 I was doing that. Anyhow, this is Secrets from the Inside. It's hard to
You've
say.
been practicing for 30 years. You can't even get the title out.
That's right. Secrets from the Inside, episode